I'd like to tell you a little bit about my grandfather. Um, his name was Joe Entz, and he was born in Waterloo, Iowa on May 10th, which happens to be my birthday. Yeah, and he was born in 1920. And he grew up there on the farm that is situated on some of the blackest, most fertile dirt on the planet Earth. And my grandfather was a kid during the Great Depression. He recounted to me, I always thought this was neat, that in those days, the small 10-acre cornfield north of the orchard there at the farmstead was taken out of row crop agricultural production and converted into a large vegetable garden, to procure additional food sources just in case. These were, after all, responsible Germanic people. But he graduated from Upper Iowa University in 1942, kind of rare for a farm kid in those days. And the war was on then. So he enlisted, and he shipped out as a Marine and was nearly mortally wounded conducting a beach landing in the Mariana Islands, the Pacific theater of World War II. He was taken to Hawaii to convalesce from those injuries, and he actually served as a military policeman for a short time thereafter in the Hawaiian Islands. This is before returning home, to begin his career as a farmer and ultimately get married and have a family during the golden age of the American family farm. And the farm in the decades that followed World War II really prospered. It was a very diverse operation and really kind of emblematic of the classic Midwestern family farm. They had dairy cows and beef cows, hogs and chickens and corn and soybeans and hay and oats and all this. And so much so, actually, that the kids from in town in Waterloo would come out to the farm on their field trips and, milk a cow, ride a hay wagon up the lane, get the country living kind of exposure. By the time I started going to the farm in the 90s, when I was a kid, the basis of the operation was corn and soybeans, and they had beef cows for a short time there when I was a kid. And I loved it. I relished my trips out there and spending time alongside my grandfather. I'd ride in the cab of the John Deere 4450 tractor with him. I'd feed cows with him. On many of those trips, he'd take me over to the John Deere implement dealer store in Waterloo and get me a little 1/32 toy, or 1/32 scale toy, John Deere tractor for my carpet farming operation, as it were, when I was a little kid. And most of our mornings began at what was known in the common parlance out there as the Ag Seminar, the agricultural seminar. Now, the Ag Seminar took place in one or two locations, and the first was at Eagle Center Tap. Eagle Center Tap was kind of a tan, squat hovel of a brick building. The tar and gravel roof, it stood out on Eagle Road in a cornfield. And then the other location was like 5 miles due east of that, and that was the Farm Service Store, FS. You could think of Ag Seminar as BS at FS. And it was here where the retired farmers in the neighborhood would congregate between 8:45 and 9 a.m. weekday mornings. They didn't need cell phones. They didn't need to text about it. They just showed up. And they'd talk grain prices and weather and politics, and they'd sip coffee, and I'd drink in my can of pop. And, the delicious, politically incorrect timbre of their discourse, and I loved it. And so I'd like to take you back with me now to the farm, an important formative kind of sanctuary for me, and a lot of fond remembrances of my time spent out there as a kid. So this is called Kid on the Farm, and I wrote this when my grandfather died about 8 years ago. Days were big and new and charmed, and they were simple good times as a kid on the farm. My grandfather taught me the story, how we got here from Spookendike Hill. All it took was his crazy uncle winning at poker and saying 400 acres ought to fit the bill. Approaching from Washburn Road, big silo was the first thing that you'd see. Soon the farm was in view, they were waving at you. It always felt like coming home to me. From the time I was 4, I was glued to his side. A love of the land will not be denied. And we'd hit the field with lunch in a pail and bed linens in tow. For I'd sleep a while on the long days, or sit on his lap and he'd let me steer down the rows. Approaching from Washburn Road, the big silo was the first thing that you'd see. Soon the farm was in view, they were waving at you. It always felt like coming home to me. As a young man setting out to make my rounds, when he and my grandma left the farm and moved into town. My last night there I realized the tender age had come to an end. Well, we buried him this summer, but what a privilege for a boy to have known such a man among men. Approaching from Washburn Road, the big silo was the first thing that you'd see. Soon the farm was in view, they were waving at you. It always felt like coming home to me. Oh, it always felt like coming home to me. Thank you. Thank you very much.